There have been several Tories, that is, members of his own party, who have publicly called for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson to resign, and we even know that last week there was a Tory MP who defected. He crossed the aisle.
Simon, what's the latest details here?
Well, the UK Armed Forces Minister James Heappey said it was entirely legitimate for Ukraine to target and won his confidence vote with 211 of his own MPs, his own party MPs, voting in favour of keeping him in power. But 148 of his own Conservative Party MPs voted against him. So although he has won this vote of confidence, it wasn't a thumping victory. It was actually quite the opposite. It's going to be a huge stain on his authority. By midday, he'd suffered 59 resignations from MPs in government, and less than an hour later, he was standing outside the famous Black Door of number 10 Downing Street, tendering his own resignation to the country. And the conflict is also having political ramifications for both the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer. Both leaders have been criticised publicly for not using a specific word, ceasefire.
Yes, what do you think really happens here next for Weinstein?
Well, the exact charges are counts of indecent assault, and these took place quite some time ago, back in 1996. But remember, Harvey Weinstein is serving prison time in the USA. The Israeli-Hamas conflict abroad in Gaza is having an increasing effect back in London as well, as Palestinian solidarity protests and Israeli solidarity protests spill onto the streets. Over the weekend, two major protests took place in London. On Saturday, a crowd of more than 100,000 people in support of Palestine marched through the streets of the central city, calling for, among other things, a ceasefire. A race to replace Boris Johnson in number 10 Downing Street, and then ultimately the building directly behind me reaches fever pitch. The 1922 committee, and that's the committee that's overseeing the process to replace Boris Johnson in the Tory party, announced that 8 candidates had made the cut. The state opening of Parliament here in London is normally a grand affair full of pomp and pageantry, in which the Queen normally delivers what's called the Queen's Speech, where she announces what her government's plans are for the subsequent political year. However, this year the Queen missed it. It's the first time she's missed the state opening of Parliament in 60 years. Now, we heard from people, including Palestinians and Israelis themselves. We heard from several people who said that they had lost loved ones brutally in both rocket strikes and ongoing conflict on both sides of this. Again, a recurring theme there, that innocent children and innocent civilians, both innocent Israelis and innocent Palestinians, are the ones who are really suffering, saying and reminding to us that peace is often the hardest road forward. This little square here that I hold in my hand, this is a very thick, very tough version of essentially what a diver's wetsuit is made out of, and this is what has to go underneath the footpath aluminium surface. Calls from London business groups are urging the Chancellor to scrap a tourist tax imposed on overseas travellers to the UK when they purchase goods and services.